Okay, I'm going to use parts of another ship to show you what the very first step is, because obviously the Borodino house skins are already fitted. But similarly, it shows you the locating points for the steps or ladders or step irons, whatever you want to call them, already printed on. So before you even cut out the parts, my first step here is to, if you use a pin or a needle, this is an airbrush needle, and just pin prick the centers of the locating points, and this will come into effect down the track when the hull's already built and we're coming to install the steps. These will just help with alignment for that step. So you'll see that later on, but the very first step is to pin prick each of the centers for the locating points. Okay, so because the 0.2mm brass isn't stiff enough to poke through the paper, even so we've just pricked it in the previous stage, what we need to do is make something a lot stiffer that will serve the same job. So if you get just a set of needles, or you only need one, and what to do is, if you cut the eye off and then putting it into like a rotary tool and spin it up, we can slowly file and grind the needle down to the correct diameter to match the wire. So here's a couple I've made previously. So I'm not sure if you can see, but they've been ground down. This one's probably easier, it's a thicker needle to start with. And I've ground it down, so probably along its length somewhere it meets the 0.2. So what you can do is, if you get your vernier gauge and then just set the gap to 0.2, and then you can keep just trialing the needle until you get the correct diameter. And then once we come to install the step irons, we'll use it then for making the hole in the paper a bit larger. Right, so the kit comes with a few different sheets. It shows you all the different metal work that you need to do, like davits, handrails, etc. So here's the part we're after here, which is the footsteps or step irons, and that's part Q2. So it's telling us the diameter, the wire needs to be 0.2mm, and we need 154 of these. The diagrams are actually to scale. So when I'm doing handrails, like I hold the wire over the part so I can get the correct dimensions. So as you can see, here's a part we need to make. Just pointing out that it is actually sharp corners. I've seen models where they're like round U shapes, and the person making it's obviously just wrapped it round something like a drill bit or something and then cut them. But they look a bit strange being a U shape, so we'll make them with the sharp edges and corners. Okay, so for the 2mm, for the 0.2mm, I've got some brass wire here that I'll use. This was a 10-meter roll of it. This is the last I've got with that, so I think I've just got enough to make the 154, so we'll use that. So what I have to do is, with this wire, so here's one part just cut out. With this wire, it's very stiff and brittle, so You can bend it, but it's springy and it doesn't hold its shape very well. And if you put in like a really sharp 90-degree bend, it's got a likelihood of snapping. So what I need to do is anneal the wire, which is just heating it up to like a cherry red, and that takes the spring and makes it more ductile and bendable. So what I normally do is just cut lengths to the size of this is a charcoal soldering block. I'm not sure what it's for, but if you place it on there, I can then use the gas torch to heat up the wire to anneal it. So we'll do that now. You have to watch, if you go too hot, it distorts the wire and becomes very rough. You just need enough to take the spring out of it. If you keep the torch moving, it's just distributes the heat. Sometimes it will go really quick and flash off. So with that heated up, it should be very, see, I can bend it, it doesn't spring, and it holds its shape, it doesn't snap. So what I do next is just with a piece of, I think this is 400, or you just want to pull it through a few times. That just removes any oxidation on the surface, which will give it a rough surface. So we just want to remove that. Okay, so just a couple of pulls through, and that's enough to clean it up. So this is now ready for shaping. So with the wire annealed, it's now ready for shaping. So what I'll do is I'll cut it into shorter lengths. And I think that's about 8mm, which gives me enough to form it, plus a bit extra for trimming and for fitting into the hull. So what you could do is you could use tweezers. Oops. Could use tweezers to then form the legs, but there's 154 of them to do, and getting them consistent to the right size, it's a bit hit or miss, especially for me. So you could also use some kind of form which is the right thickness for the dimensions, and again form it on that by pressing and bending up the legs. This is a Citadel seam scraper for plastic modelling, but the width is just perfect for these. So again, as 154, you've still got a bit of work to hold it, bend it and whatnot. So what I'll do is I'll make up a jig to form them. So using just, I think it's just 2mm plastic card, we'll make up a little jig where we can glue this up, and then the dimensions is correct, and then we can just production line fold up all the step arms. So there's nothing fancy about this. You can use any stiff material. The plastic card I just find quicker and easier. So the only real dimensions is you need to keep the two parts exactly parallel to the correct distance. So you don't need to square this up to here, but it's just what I like to do. So we'll just glue this first section on. So what we do now is I'll let this go off, but the next step is to get the correct distance. So you have the space, which is the actual step itself, plus 2 times the thickness of the wire. So what I'll do is I'll just put this here, put the wire which is 0.2 mil, so a 0.4 mil gap here, or a spacer here, and then glue the next part up to it. So you've got this thickness plus 2 thicknesses of wire, and we'll glue that in parallel. So I'll do that off camera next, because I need to let this set up, because any pressure it will slide, so I'll do that next. So that's it, the jig glued up. So let's have a look at making some. Okay, so all we need to do now is place the wire across the gap, and then come in with the scraper, press down, and that's it. One perfectly formed step. So you can see how quick it is compared to try and do them with one by one with tweezers or whatever. And we can soon knock these over. So I've got the camera between me and the jig, so it's a bit hard to get my hands around it. But yeah, we can soon knock these over. If you hold it slightly off center, it'll give you one leg longer than the other, and this will help later when we come to install them. That one was off center, but you can actually squeeze them to straighten them up. Okay, so here's the positions we're going to do the ladders, or the steps. So from previously, when I ground down the needle, what I've done is I've just marked where it stops at the 0.2 millimeters, which is the wire diameter, so I know not to go in too far. So what we need to do now is, and you might be able to make out the little pricks in the centres, or near enough the centres of the white dots, which was what we did in the early steps. Oops. So now we just need to enlarge the holes with a needle, and then that will give us the diameters. So with the needle, you can actually see the paper moving in with the pressure. But if you didn't have that center pinprick, you'd be pressing a lot harder against the paper. And this, it just gives the needle a bit of a start to get in and enlarge the hole. The brass itself isn't stiff enough to poke through the paper by itself. That's why we're kind of going through this process. Now this one here is actually a joint in a card. So I'm actually going through one of the ribs inside. But it's managed to go through okay. Just needs a bit more pressure. There we go. Okay, so that's our holes done. Now we'll just start fitting in the steps themselves. So with one leg longer than the other, it makes it easier to get it started. Because you're not trying to line up two holes at once. You're only dealing with one and then the other. So. Okay, so you get the idea with that. I'll finish putting these in and then we'll come back. Okay, so they're all roughly in place now. So what we need to do is just fix the alignment. So what I do, I want to have them all away from the hull by 0.5. So what I'll do is I was just sticking a piece of 0.5 mil brass, and then that will set the distance. Okay, so now all I need to do is press them against the brass, and then they'll all be the same distance away. So if we can just push them in now. That bottom one, that's a bit tricky. That's the one that's actually into a bit of framework. So I need to be a bit careful here. I don't crush it. And the top one's into a frame as well. So with the spacing set, I can now just fine tune each one. As you can see, some of them's into a bit of an angle. I just need to pull them forward and then repress them in again. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just take these out. Oops. That's a wee bit of fine tuning. Okay, so that's not looking not too bad. A few little tweaks in here. So now what we need to do is we need to set them in position so they don't move. So for glue, what I'll use is I'll just use ordinary woodworking PVA. So, and then I'll show you how I do that next. So for the glue, what I'll use is highly diluted PVA glue. So it's almost water, and then working my way on the rung towards the hull. And then if it's runny enough, what will happen is the glue in the water will flow into the paper with capillary action. So I hope you can see that. So just moving myself on the rung and slide up to the hull, and then just touch the hull fractionally. And remember, it's PVA, so it will dry clear. And that's kind of just all I need, just to lock it in place. And now that I've got a bit of glue on it, I can actually just final tweak and it needs it. So this one here, I'll need a bit of tweaking. So now I've got some glue on it, it will be less likely to move in and out. There we go. So hopefully that one will dry up, locked in place now. Okay, so I'll just finish off the other side and then we'll come back. So that's all the steps locked in place with the diluted PVA. So looking not too bad. So what we need to do now is paint them black. So you can use, I guess, any paint you want. I'll use this black watercolor, which I've used throughout this build. It's not a black, so it kind of matches a lot better with the paper. Because as you can see, the paper is not like a full black. So again, just a bit of patience, and it's almost similar to the glue, where you kind of work your way up to the hole. Trying to work around the camera here. And plus you have to remember to cover all the surfaces, so underneath as well. Just work up to the hole. By working up to the hole as well, you don't actually, or you minimize the amount of paint you get. And then some areas where paper's damaged, like here, you can actually come up and color it in a bit. I like watercolors because you can kind of flow up to the hole without worrying too much about getting paint on it. No, I'll persevere with the watercolor. So let me just continue this and then we'll come back for a final look and final thoughts. Okay, so that's that one's finished. It turned out not too bad. I mean, there is, probably could have spent a bit more time just touching up and tweaking the position of some of them, but on the whole, they're pretty consistent, so not too bad. So, still a number to do, as you can see. I've got a whole section here, and a couple of sections here as well, so it's quite a number, 154 all up, so once you get a bit of a method going, it's not too bad. Okay, thanks for watching.